Hey, we're back with a little post-Thanksgiving episode. James and I catch up about what we've been up to, chat a little bit about AI, some talk about the performance of industrial design, and 3D printing. I think you all enjoy it. As always, you can email us at mydetailspodcast@gmail.com. If you have a question or topic idea or a thought you'd like to send in, we'd love to hear from you. And yeah, we have a bunch of links on our website to Discord, YouTube, Spotify, whatever your method of listening is. Go and subscribe, give us 5 stars, do all the good things. It really helps us out. And yeah, let's hear the amazing intro by KYOSHY the Kid. Hey, welcome to Minor Details. I'm Nick.
And I'm James.
And we're 2 designers in the big city.
Sweating the small stuff.
You had the little we got the spin ball opener out tonight.
Oh yeah. We're spinning.
Also, yeah, shameless self promo. If you guys want a little Christmas gift, plenty of spin ball openers, almoshobject.com. We're trying to get some Minor Details merch up in here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We're working on it, you know. We want to do something nice, you know. So, done a few like iterations and samples, but nothing to show yet. But James, how you been?
I've been pretty good. Took a little break there.
Yeah, Thanksgiving, I guess.
Yeah.
Happened.
Well, they were, I was working pretty hard over at work.
Yeah.
And after the hard work was kind of over, my manager was like, "Hey, when's the last time you took a vacation?" I was like, "You don't have to ask me twice." And he was like, "You're fired." No, I'm kidding. But
you're not fired.
I went down to Florida with the fam. My wife's originally from Florida, and so we actually took Clara to Disney World for the first time.
Oh,
so it was like, it's the first time I've been there in a while. I guess maybe I visited there one other time when we were visiting Florida before we had Clara. But, she's 2.5. So, like, she knows all the characters, but I don't, like, she had a great time. I don't know how much of it she, like, absorbed as, like, oh, this is, like, this, like, special once in a few years kind of experience or whatever. Yeah. Like I feel like Disney World has this kind of place in a lot of like people's minds as like the
magical place.
The magical place that like you only visit like maybe once in your life, like as a young kid. So
you might take her again, I guess.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the fact that my wife is from Florida, we often travel through Orlando. Like we just did a day at Disney World.
Oh, okay.
So
a small trip.
It was a small trip, but she is like a total adrenaline junkie.
Yeah. Okay.
It's amazing.
Nice.
She just like, there were a couple like small roller coasters there. And she's kind of a tall 2.5-year-old. Okay. I mean, go figure.
Right. You're tall, Allison's tall.
Yeah. But so she was tall enough to ride the rides. And took her on some roller coasters and she just like absolutely loved it. Did not like any of the like slow rides that go through. Like there's like It's a Small World and there's a Winnie the Pooh one. There's a Little Mermaid one. There's a Peter Pan one. Like, we went through those and she just like buried her face in Allison's like, in her lap. Just did not like that. But the roller coasters, I was just like, she could not get enough of. And like the magic teacup, like the
teacups.
She was laughing like maniacally.
Spinning it really fast.
Yeah.
I went when I want to say I was like maybe 7.
Yeah.
And I really liked, I think, Thunder Mountain. Is that the one with the train? Mm-hmm. And then I also, my sister was 5, and we went to do the Tower of Terror. Did you do the Tower of Terror? I think they might have changed the name now.
I did the Tower of Terror like a long time ago.
You know, and my dad, you know, was like, "Oh, it'll be fun. Come on, it'll be fun." You know, and I'm, you know, I was like a little more hesitant. Holly, my sister, my family is the kind of more adrenaline. My dad and my sister are kind of the adrenaline junkies. My mom and I are more reserved, and so I was like hesitant of going on this Tower of Terror, because I'm like, I don't want to do a scary thing. Yeah. And my dad's like, "Oh, just an elevator. It goes up and it goes down, and you get it right off. It's fine." Oh my gosh, we were crying at the end. We were screaming, crying. We wanted it off.
How old?
I was 7.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
it was not for me.
But
I do like roller coasters.
When I was younger, I hated roller coasters. Like, my dad tricked me on a roller coaster at like Hershey Park, similar to what it sounds like your dad did with the Tower of Terror. And like, there's nothing worse. If you don't like roller coasters, there's nothing worse than like the anticipation, the like click, 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 click. And it just like, it just keeps going and going. And you're like, what? Yeah. I thought it was going to stop like 25 clicks ago. And there's like a picture of me probably around the same age that you're talking about on this roller coaster in Hershey Park called the Wildcat. I don't know if it's still there, but like old wooden roller coaster. And I have like, my dad's like leaning forward, like smiling like a maniac. And I am eyes closed and my hair is sticking straight up. I'm just man. Oh God, get me through this. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, also just like, you know, it's the first time that I've visited Disney World as like a designer after having, you know, gone through design education and just like also being a working professional and understanding how much goes behind the creative process and just sort of being like, just sort of marveling at what I'm witnessing and seeing in terms of like the different parts of the park, the different rides, like how they've designed those experiences.
I mean, they're amazing at doing that. I think they're called Imagineers, right? Is that they don't have designers, they have Imagineers, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what they call them.
Yeah. So like, I mean, it's just really interesting. You know, it veers into a part of design that I'm like probably not as comfortable with, which is sort of like
spaces, experiences.
Yeah. And also just the content of what they're working with and how that manifests itself into more of like almost more of like a naturalistic kind of thing rather than something that's like dictated by an industrial process or something like that. Yeah. But it's really cool. So that was fun.
You just went to Magic Kingdom?
Yeah, Magic Kingdom.
Because they have the Star Wars. Don't they have Star Wars now or something?
Yeah, we went to the Star Wars world out in LA at Disneyland. Which is crazy. They had like the full-size Millennium Falcon. Nice. And we went on like the Millennium Falcon ride. But yeah, it was cool. And it's cool to just like be there. But I feel like what I'm trying to get out, especially with like 2-year-olds, is like they kind of have fun anywhere. Like I think she did have a ton of fun, like seeing the characters.
Could have gone to putt-putt.
Yeah, like we like, you know, we did the character breakfast, and she was like really into that. She met a few characters at the park. Like she loved all that. But like she's also like equally happy at the playground sort of thing. But I don't know. There's definitely like, I think you sort of saw a spark in her eye while we were there of like, oh, this is different from what I'm usually experiencing. Right. So yeah, it was cool. It'll be cool to like go back in a couple years, just to see like, you know, how she views it then. I don't know, like, do you know anybody? I was thinking about like people that make Disney kind of like their identity. Oh no. Do you know people who've made Disney?
No, we can't bring up Disney adults on the podcast.
I'm not trying to slam
man.
anybody.
I do know Disney adults, yeah.
Yeah.
From back home, growing
Okay.
up. There was a few people, in high school that would go every year.
Yeah.
That had gone every year since they were kids, and that still go nowadays, I'm sure. Everyone has a thing.
Everyone has a thing.
I'm sure it's a fun thing.
Of all the things,
Yeah.
like Disney adult or meth head, like
Yeah,
I think
Disney adults better than drug addict.
Yeah.
For sure.
But it is like I don't have any feeling about that necessarily. I remember I met this guy who was like kind of like poo-pooing people who were
Disney adults.
Okay. Meanwhile, he had like a Superman shirt on. I was like, I don't think you have any room to talk.
Yeah, everyone has their like hobbies or interests. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Disney World since I was 7, and I don't think I've been to an amusement park since I was in high school.
Really? Did your high school take you to like? Did you go on field trips to amusement parks?
We had Carowinds. That was our place in North Carolina, I think we did a few school trips, maybe in middle school to Carowinds. Six Flags. I remember we went to that in Atlanta. Actually, when I was working in Texas, I was working right next to Six Flags.
Yeah.
Of Texas, but never went.
Huh.
So the last time I went was in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a whole. It'd be fun to have a designer.
Weren't you
who
like
works
a roller coaster tycoon kid?
Yes, I love Roller Coaster Tycoon, man. That's the best game ever.
Yeah. So like, but that part of you never like, at the same time, you were never like seeking out amusement parks.
No, I think I liked the building of Roller Coaster Tycoon, like building, roller coasters and like kind of the monopoly aspect of it. And yeah, I don't know. It's like, I definitely do remember like thinking it would be cool to design roller coasters in the real world.
Was that your first foray into design? Roller Coaster Tycoon? Well, I guess your grandfather was an architect.
Yeah,
right.
But I wouldn't really call Roller Coaster Tycoon like design. It's just like it scratches that itch in my head,
Yeah.
And I feel like I only understood what that itch was when I went to college. I was like, this is what it is.
It is design. Like it's just
it is design, but no one told me about it.
Instead of like, working with like sizes of 2x4 and different like screws, you're dealing with like a different scale of component that you're putting together to like create a certain experience.
If you design roller coasters, shoot us an email. We want to hear about your experience.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And I like to that point, and talking about Imagineers, the other thing that's really interesting about Disney World is how much they design the lines, because the lines can get so long that like they design these like interactive lines.
They're like part of the story.
Yeah, so that so that as you're waiting, you're not like, totally miserable.
Yeah. That's cool.
The Winnie the Pooh one was actually like very interactive. They had some like touchscreen stuff, like wiping away honey to like reveal pictures.
Interesting.
And
Is the touchscreen sticky or sticky from kids' fingers? Maybe.
I was reaching up higher, so it was a bit cleaner up there. I think, I'm pretty sure Clara took a lick. I don't know.
Oh no. Good for the immune system.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, long tangent. But that was my last 2 weeks.
That's good.
Yeah.
I've just been in the studio.
Yeah.
Nothing exciting for me. I'm working on my little strap box thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
I'll just show it on camera right quick. It's just a plywood box with a strap around it.
You're back to the strap. What's brought you back to the strap?
Well, the strap box or strap stool, or I don't really know what to call it yet. I've had for a while, actually. I've had it for a year and a half or something. I've had the idea and I had the prototype sitting around the studio for that long. And I just always used it as like a step stool or like as an extra chair, or I was using it as like a plant stand recently. And I'm like, I use this thing all the time. Like I should figure out how to manufacture it. So I picked up the project again and been refining it. There's a few like little details I want to fix and change it from solid wood to plywood so it's stronger, and I don't know, all kinds of little things. But I think my goal was to make the strap chair into a more commercially viable product, because the strap chair with like pine trees just stuck around the block of wood is like a fun exercise, a fun art project, but it's not really something you can mass produce.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm going with this like strap box system. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole idea is like it's modular, so you could get, if you have two of them, you could strap it together as a shelf, or you could like do a 3 shelf. I think, you know, I could even expand to like doing a table version where you have a bigger piece on top. I was also thinking about doing like a chair kind of inspired by this, and maybe like the straps are part of the cushion or something, so it's like flexible and comfortable. But yeah, no, that was like my recent project that I've been dabbling around with.
Yeah.
But you know how it goes, James. So many ideas, not enough time.
The only thing that I was thinking about with this is like if you're using it as something to hold things.
The strap on the inside.
The strap on the inside. Like, how do you feel about the fact that it's sort of like invading that space?
Right.
I mean, I think it's a cool visual.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like, yeah, seeing that hint of it.
Yeah, you know, this is my style, you know, make things almost functional. You know?
No, but I mean, I think like,
no, I do agree. There's,
I don't know that it's
a trade-off.
I don't think, yeah, exactly. It's a trade-off. I mean, this being the only like thing that's keeping this all together, the strap, I think I mean, it's so understandable and so intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if like, yeah, I don't know if you would want to, like, I like the sort of like interlacing of it.
Yeah, structurally, I think it helps a lot to have it kind of weave inside of the box.
Yeah.
If it just goes around the outside, it's a little bit less structural, I think. But
yeah. I'm going to sit on this bad boy.
Yeah, go give it a shot, man. It's solid, I'll tell you that. Listen, we all know how the strap chair went, and this thing you throw out a 10-story building.
Nice. Yep. Feels good. Feels secure.
Approved?
I would put my daughter on
ship it?
this.
All right.
It's safe.
We got a AI news segment. I don't even.
AI news.
Okay, yeah, that's a good. I was like, what should our soundbite be for AI news? AI.
We should ask the AI what it should be.
Yeah, maybe we should just pull up, because I think there is a AI that does make music now. I saw recently. I wish I would have remembered what the site was. I saw it and I was like, oh, I should check this out, and then got distracted. But the one thing I was looking at recently was Chat GPT, which is OpenAI's kind of newest version of their chatbot. And, you know, I think there's been plenty of kind of AI chatbots, and you can just ask questions and, you know, ping ideas around. But this one, you know, I've been dabbling with it, and it's like pretty impressive what it can do. I mean, I've seen some pretty impressive kind of things that other people have been doing in terms of like coding. You know, programmers will ask it how to solve a specific coding problem, and it'll write code for you, like that kind of stuff. But it's a general kind of chatbot, so you can ask it anything. And of course, I was asking it about design. I was trying to get it to come up with interesting chair designs.
Yeah.
So I was like, give me a list of 10 chair designs.
Yeah.
And so it just lists off designs like a chair that is made out of glass, a chair that's really ergonomic, a chair that, you know, is made out of wood or something. And they're a little generic. It was kind of like a little boring. But then I asked it 10 chair designs that humans would never even think of. And then it was like a chair made out of spikes, a chair that looks like a mouth with teeth on it, a chair that looks like a hand. And ironically, like there is a chair that looks like a hand.
Yeah.
Gitano has a chair.
Very
famous chair.
Very iconic.
And then I was asking it to describe the chair in detail. I specifically chose like the one with the teeth, the monster teeth or whatever. And then I took that description and plugged it in to DALL-E. So it was like this full loop of like, you know, because we kind of had this realization talking about AI where you can now create any image of an idea, but you still have to have the idea. You still have to have the story. And that was the piece that we're kind of missing. But now with ChatGPT, it can come up with an idea. And, I wouldn't say it's maybe the most cleverest idea, but only a matter of time, right? Like, a chair that looks like a mouth is kind of a crazy idea. But, when you render it out in DALL-E, it's like, oh, there's some interesting options here,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, we're still at this like beginning phase of all this, so it feels like it's accelerating really quickly.
I mean, I can see how for like the corporate designer that this could sort of like, the designer who's like constantly being asked to like come up with new ideas and like just draw from some pool of inspiration. I mean, I'm all right. As I'm saying this, I'm like, what am I trying to say here? Like, I think for the independent designer, sure, you could be a designer who bases everything that you're working on like, I'm exploring the new frontier, which is like kind of like what your new branding is about, which is like a delightful future. But like, I feel like a lot of what being an independent designer is like saying something about you and your point of view about the world.
Right.
Like, and I mean, that's not to say that you couldn't retrofit or like find something that connects with you through AI.
Yeah.
I guess that can definitely happen. But I'm as a corporate designer, I'm just sort of thinking about like the corporate designers out there who are pushed to come up with new and inventive ideas, and they're not necessarily motivated by like this like internal flame about like whatever it is that they're doing. And so in a way, maybe this like takes some of that pressure off to say like, oh, here's like this bank of inspiration that I can now draw from. I mean, it's just like having an artificial collaborator, basically. It's like having, as an individual, like you don't necessarily need a team to inspire you.
Right.
I've sort of like,
that's interesting.
One thing that I've been thinking a lot about in terms of like who I am as a designer and where my strengths are. One of my strengths, I feel like there's always talk about like you're either a front end designer or you're a back end designer. And I actually, sometimes I feel like I'm a middle end designer or something.
You bridge the gap.
I bridge the gap. I think that I am I'm pretty good at like taking something that someone has generated and like seeing the refinement, like seeing how, like where that can go.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that you are a great storyteller in that sense, right? Because it's like maybe someone kind of has the spark of the idea, but you really flesh out the full story of that. And then, eventually there's probably someone that comes in and kind of refines any details, last minute details.
Yeah. And so like, to me, I like the idea that AI can sort of like generate a rough idea for me to then refine.
Yeah.
That's appealing because I don't have to. Sometimes if you're the one to generate the initial idea, it's not always so easy to see the next refinement. But if the AI is doing it, it's much easier to see maybe. And that's where it gets back to this whole thing of like, it's almost like being a curator rather than like you're becoming more of a curator and maybe less of a designer. But I think you can be a refiner. It's kind of like that Philippe Starck chair that he did with like Autodesk, where it was like it created a really rough model of a chair, and then they took it through the refinement process.
You know who else has been doing a lot of AI stuff? Oh, also, I just want to say, you were kind of saying that you don't feel like being independent designer, or you feel like independent designers using AI is a little bit less, I don't know, valuable because independent designers are kind of pulling from their heart and from their point of view. And I agree with you. Like that is kind of the
unless it's a part of their brand to be on the forefront of like tech.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know?
But what I was thinking is that I actually think that there are a lot of independent designers dabbling with it and just not adding that to their story, right? Like they're using it as a tool the same way, like obviously like Jas Morrison uses like CAD as a tool, but he's not posting about it.
Yeah.
So I think there's that aspect too, where it's like, yeah, you know, they're still pulling from their heart, but they're probably still playing with AI. I mean, and you know who has been playing with AI out in the open a lot is Ross Lovegrove. Have you seen a lot of his stuff?
Oh no, I haven't.
Yeah, I think he's been posting a lot of AI stuff on his Instagram, which is kind of fun because it's like, it's kind of a superpower that he has because he can type in his own name and it can generate his own work because he's so well known.
That's interesting because I feel like, you know, I was sort of saying that I feel like AI is sort of enabling a level of, I've seen a lot of organic, super organic design that's been derived from the AI. And that, I mean, that lends completely to what Ross Lovegrove does,
right? Which
is organic.
Yeah.
Like he's Captain Organic.
For sure. I guess the other thing was Midjourney came out with a new update, which has been really impressive. I would say Midjourney is now better than DALL-E in my opinion. But now there's so many softwares now. They've just kind of proliferated. I haven't had the chance to catch up with all of them, but that was one other update. And then did you want to, I have a hot take, but it's kind of a separate hot take on designers becoming render artists.
Oh yeah.
This is something I was thinking about for a while, and I feel like I don't think we've talked about this on the podcast, but I feel like there are some people in the design community who have accidentally become render artists. Not because, I mean, you know, I think obviously Render Weekly was kind of the inspiration to like get really good at rendering for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people found it like really fun and exciting to render. And a lot of people really enjoy render art and wanted to kind of pursue that full time. Obviously, we know a few designers who've pivoted to just being render artists. But I also think there's a few designers that have maybe accidentally pivoted or pigeonholed to render artists and they still want to be a designer. I just thought that was interesting because like I see like people doing really amazing renderings and then also starting to pick up rendering gigs. And maybe that's what they want, but it's also like something to think about when, I don't know, I always just think about that. Like I think about that occasionally where it's like, if someone called me up and was like, hey Nick, can you do a nice render for me? I'd be like, no, that's not what I do.
Right.
But when you show a lot of really great renderings, people start to kind of ask for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's like a side tangent.
Well, I mean, what's the hot take?
Well, the hot take is that I think people have accidentally pigeonholed themselves. You know, it's just like maybe they still want to be a designer, but they've just kind of picked up this render skill, and people are starting to hire them for that skill. And if you know, it's just kind of this idea of like the work that you put out there is the work you're going to do.
Right.
And it's just interesting because like if it's not original render art that you're like, you know, people like render furniture that is like famous furniture and just like a render scene, be like, hey, I'm working on my render skills. Or like people render the iPhone or iPhone concept. And it's like, these are now, you know, you're becoming a render artist by showing off that skill. And I think, I don't know, I just thought it was an interesting thing because I think some people are doing it accidentally. Some people actually really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a better path for them, but.
Yeah, well, I'm also like slightly concerned about the render artists of the world with AI.
Right. That's why I was kind of like thinking too.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like I'm certainly nobody's ever going to call me up for a rendering. I'm like decent. I'm like totally just like okay at rendering.
Yeah.
And that's where like I see myself as that like middle end designer.
Yeah.
Where like the thing that I love most in the design process is like rough line work sketches that are then directly translated into CAD, and then like the back and forth between those, and like printing and iterating and everything. But it's like, you know, all the form based sort of work that you do. And so like, yeah, I can set up a render scene and I can like show what I'm working on, but nobody's ever going to come to me for like a render deck of like, we need to sell this thing. We need it to look hot. And I'm like,
I also think the other thing that I've been thinking about a lot too is kind of in line with this topic is, especially being an independent designer now and kind of pursuing the studio route, a lot of the process is designing something on my own, pitching it to companies, and getting a licensing deal. And that process has traditionally been done by designers sketching stuff, making a prototype, and getting photography done.
Yeah.
And now I'm able to create such a convincing render that some people are asking me if it's a real thing or not, like if it's a prototype or if someone's already manufactured it. And I just like got caught off guard one time. I was talking to the CEO of a company, and he was like, "Oh wait, does someone already manufacture this product?" Because he thought it was like already produced. Because you know, I bought a few like assets, and like, you know, I've just like stepped up my rendering game a little bit. And I was like, no, it's just a render. And so that was like a funny moment of like, do we now have a competitive edge against the old traditional way of making prototypes? I mean, making a prototype is much more time intensive, cost prohibitive, and there's a higher bar to entry there, especially with like licensing and stuff when you have to fund it yourself. You know, obviously the value of a prototype is that it actually is a real thing. It works. You can figure things out that you couldn't with a render. But there's some products that you don't really need to make a prototype of.
Yeah. I had a thought.
Like small, simple products.
What was that thought?
Prototype of to pitch is what I'm saying.
Do you think, I have observed that like a lot of our sort of like contemporaries, yourself included, take on a lot of their work as individuals and don't utilize a network of like prototypers and renderers, and like they don't, like, I feel like there's a lot of
like
the
solo
sort of like
designers.
star designers of a certain era that I feel like utilized like outsourcing their work. Whereas I feel like a lot of people now, yourself included, take on all of that work themselves.
Right.
Like,
because I think it's more approachable now.
It's more approachable to like be able to do all those things yourself.
Yeah. I mean, we have, you know, 3D printing, which I think we'll talk about in a bit too, I think. But it's, you know, 3D printing, like very high fidelity renders where it looks like a photo. And yeah, I think also just the tools, like the 3D modeling tools now. I mean, I think about VR all the time. It's like this, yeah, I feel like I'm getting just so proficient in it that I don't even know if I need to touch traditional CAD software anymore, because I can do a super detailed, you know, chair, pitch it to a company, get it licensed, and eventually, you know, the company will be like, okay, well, we'll need a 3D model, and I'll send the Gravity Sketch file or a, you know, step file of that, and then they'll have their engineers just surface over that and produce it. I don't know. It's like, I do think we're kind of in a I don't know, golden age where the tools are becoming so great that a lot of that outsourcing can be done in-house now.
Yeah.
Not everything, but it's just like it's gotten a lot better.
Right. But it makes me wonder about, I don't remember, I think this was like Scott Henderson in a different interview. I mean, he's been on our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He spoke about how he feels like designers right now, and this was a couple of years ago, and I wonder how he feels about it now, but he spoke about how designers are like so into the process that they're not spending the time to like enrich the story of the product. And like, I feel like because of the era that we're living in, and like the sort of like performativity of like what you're doing becomes then like almost as important, if not more so, than like what ends up getting made.
I mean, the thing is like enriching the story of the product. The story of the product can also be the story of the process of the product.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they could be different, right? You could have a product that is a kind of a different story. Maybe it's a story about the inspiration or something, but also a product that just is a story of how it's made or how it's designed, I think is just as valuable.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you've been to like this idea of kind of designing publicly on the internet. I feel like is a new phenomenon that comes with its own story. I mean, that's kind of what I've been doing with this recent strap box thing. It's like I kind of want to start putting out that story, even though I've had the design around for a year and a half.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, if I'm actually going to make it, I need to start telling the story of how it's getting made.
Right.
Because I think it's just something that I think people will appreciate more.
Yeah. I mean,
more.
I think that there's definitely like I think this is the right word to use. There's like a bifurcation happening where there are the designers who are sharing the work and sharing the process, but then there's equally the designers who are not sharing any of that.
It's just hidden. It's just like one day they
and just
pop
sharing.
out of design.
I mean, I haven't met him. I'd love for him to be my friend, but Josh
Scourge.
Yeah. I mean, he just kind of like
pops out stuff. Well, yeah. I've been trying to get Josh on the pod. We've talked about it many times. And he has opinions on this for sure.
And I feel like also like teenage engineering is not necessarily so upfront with like the process behind their work.
Right.
Like they're sort of mysterious. Like I think maybe that
well, that's the thing, right? It's the mystique.
Yeah.
If you pop stuff out magically, there's a big like magician trick there. It's like a mystique thing.
Yeah.
And I've struggled with that a lot, actually. It's like, do I want to be the mystical magic designer that just like super quiet and they just pop stuff out? Or do I want to be the more open, the people's designer? And I still struggle with it. I don't have a good answer for that. But
have you tried to like place yourself within the Jungian archetypes thing? Because there's a whole philosophy around businesses and
right.
the Jungian archetypes.
I feel like I have. I mean, I guess it's like magician. I feel like I get into the magician crowd.
Yeah.
Clever, playful things.
Right. But I don't know if the magician
doesn't show a lot of process.
Is the magician? Yeah, I guess it is all sort of behind closed doors. Magician
Apple
doesn't reveal their secrets.
Right. Apple's the magician.
But
archetype.
Apple also does reveal. I mean, it does a little bit like
how it's made.
There's a little bit of reveal, but there's also a lot of mystique.
There's a lot of.
It's just like a.
I do miss Apple's old videos where Johnny Ive would narrate how, and you'd see the CNC machine like cut the.
Did we talk about the fact that Evans, what's her name? What's her last name? Yeah, she left.
Yeah. Recently.
I don't know that there's any.
She was VP of Industrial Design.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any more information than that she left, and I don't know if they've named a new director of ID. I'm sure that there's somebody de facto in there.
Yeah, I think there is. I would have to pull it up to figure it out.
Yeah, that was a short run, like relatively.
Yeah,
because when did he leave?
I want to say like 5 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that wasn't like a quick, if you're getting a VP spot, I usually stay there for a good bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Evans, come on the pod. I'm like so curious, like why.
You know who I met? Did I ever tell you this? I met Abadar Chowdhury.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he visited New York, so he told me all the secrets. No, I'm just kidding. They're obviously sworn to never tell any to you.
Yeah, he's like curvature, continuous fillets on every corner.
No, he really enjoys working there. So said it's a great team. So yeah, I don't know. It again, it goes back to this like magician mystique. It's like you don't know anything.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this person left, and that's all we know. We don't know why. We don't know the process behind it. We don't know if it's good or bad. It's like,
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. But then, yeah, like I guess like I'm trying to think of an example of somebody on the other side of like the non mystique, like
super process.
Yeah, super process. I guess Tom Sachs.
That's interesting.
And Virgil Abloh.
Where they're just very like open with how they design. Yeah, Tom Sachs is a great example of that.
Yeah.
Because it's just like almost, it's not even the final product. It's just like, obviously he does a lot of the documentaries and stuff of making the thing. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I've found a lot of like value in his like I've just been watching like a lot of Tom Sachs talks and things more recently, and I had never really I'd known about him. Mm-hmm. I think I might have told you that like I went out to Governor's Island once with Allison, and like we got off the boat, and because you have to take a ferry to get to Governor's Island, and we were just there. It's it's an island in New York just south of the tip of Manhattan where you can just like hang out.
It's a big park.
There's like
old buildings.
There's food and like there's a big grassy area. But we walked off the boat and there were some people there were like, "Oh, are you with Nike? Are you here for the Nike thing?" And we were like, "Oh no." But I didn't know that it was the Tom Sachs Space Camp thing of like do this obstacle course and get the like the Mars.
Yeah. That's a fun thing. He's always doing great stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I did the rocket launch thing. We talked about the NFT.
Did you ever talk? Did you talk to him while you were there?
I don't know if I chatted with him. I mean, the crazy thing about Tom Sachs is I feel like he's very approachable. He's very like he's like kind of this people's artist, right? He's like this American kind of I don't know, very like friendly artist that you can just like. It almost feels like he could be your friend,
Right.
Which I guess lends itself to this other kind of side of the magician, the contrast there.
Yeah.
I didn't get to talk to him, but yeah, he was there launching rockets. Yeah.
No, I think he's said this thing in a couple talks, because the way that he works is like, everything is handmade, like it's kind of rough around the edges. He's like, I could never make something as perfect as an iPhone, but Apple can never make something as shitty as I do, or something to that effect. Mm-hmm. But like, yeah, I do like kind of love that mentality as well. And there's just like, I don't know, there's something like sage-like about him in a way. And I like the seriousness to which like he takes things like doing the whole like moon landing or the Mars landing like performance.
I will say, a lot of his kind of documentary style is inspired by or collaborated with Van Neistat. Mm-hmm. And obviously Casey Neistat was in the mix there too. So you kind of see the thread of that kind of DIY style throughout all those creators.
Yeah.
I think Van and Casey kind of brought the video style into Tom Sachs's studio. Tom Sachs was only doing just physical stuff before, and then when they came and worked at his studio, Tom kind of adopted their video kind of attributes and then kind of collaborated that way.
Yeah. Have you, I know like Casey, or not Casey, Tom Sachs has the video to the 10 bullets,
Yeah.
right? Dieter Rams has the 10 rules of good design.
Yeah.
Have you started to think about your 10?
We should do the minor details 10. 10 details for industrial design.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
Yeah.
That should be an episode idea.
Man, I can't even think of, make it delightful. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously thought a lot about that in terms of rebranding the studio. I only came up with 4 values. They're kind of like bullet points, but
because like
it'd be fun to do one sentence things.
In 5 years, do you envision your studio like it would still be predominantly you, or do you think you would bring in more?
No, I would keep
help.
I mean, yeah, I would love to have more help, and I've hired people here and there in the past, and at some point it'd be nice to have a couple full-time people just to help kind of prototype and develop and pitch products and stuff. I don't think I'd get it really big though. I think it'd be pretty small.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I envision maybe 5 max, 10 people. And 10 seems like a lot, maybe 5.
Yeah. Nice. Consider this my application.
Okay. Let's see. What else we got? We've just been chatting, I guess. Do you want to we could talk a little bit about 3D printing? Or we have questions. We could do one or the other, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I've been thinking, like, while I was down in Florida, some downtime, I was watching a lot of our buddy Seth Fowler's videos, and he's sort of taken up a lot of this, like, sort of covering of 3D printed shoes. Mm-hmm. And he's also been 3D printing his own shoes.
Making his own, yes.
And like he's got like a full like garage full of printers now, it looks like.
I didn't know he has multiple printers now?
He's got multiple.
Oh, I have to watch one of his latest videos. I think I watched the first video that he made a shoe, and he made a shoe in SolidWorks. And I was like typing in the comments like, brother, we got to get you Gravity Sketch, because that is painful to make a tennis shoe in SolidWorks. I can't even.
I thought it looked pretty good.
He accomplished a lot in SolidWorks, but
yeah, no, it's definitely not a program that's made for it. But yeah, he's done a couple of videos where he's designed some, but he's also reviewed shoes. A recent video that he did was really interesting. He designed a shoe for Braille, that skateboarding channel.
It's a pretty famous channel, right?
Yeah, so he did
I think I saw a few clips from
He designed a skateboarding shoe, 3D printed skateboarding shoe for them. I think the method that he did, which I thought was really interesting, like another, like talking about outsourcing, like he did a sketch and then he hired somebody off of Fiverr. He actually hired 2 designers off of Fiverr.
Wait, was this one of these YouTube videos where it's like, I spend $50 hiring, is this logo good? Is this shoe good? Is this one?
Well, it was, I mean, at least with what he was doing, he was like, I gave them the sketch, which is like what a lot of footwear designers do. Like, there's a lot of footwear designers who never touch CAD in the first place, as far as I know. So he gave them the CAD files and had these 2 designers like model, and then he chose one and printed it. And he, like, before the whole process, he got Braille to give him information of like, hey, where do you need, like, where is this going to wear away the most? Like, what kind of grip do you need on the shoes? Like, so it was really cool. But I was watching this, and he's done some reviews of some 3D printed shoes, like the Zellerfelds, the Heron Preston Zellerfelds, the Alive Form, I think, is the other one, and then I think there was also an Asics slide.
Interesting.
And of course, like Adidas has done that that 3D printed sole.
Right, the 40, Adidas 40.
The
right?
40,
40
yeah.
Craft or something. Is that what it's called? 40 Craft?
Oh man, that marketing team, they're like, It's 40. But yeah, I mean, it just made me think, like, I think we brought this up a few episodes ago, and my mind is always on 3D printing because I think it's so interesting. And, I've said so many times, my hope for the future is like we go back to a more localized manufacturing. You have designers local who are designing local.
Right.
And so, like, I think that it's so fascinating that I feel like footwear seems to be the first market where they're getting mass adoption of this technology. Like, I don't see it anywhere else in terms of like mass market adoption.
Right. Yeah.
Of like, hey, this quality, because, right now we're only getting a certain quality out of 3D printers. But like, it seems like with the footwear industry, like they have completely adopted it as like, oh, this is dope. This is sweet.
Yeah. First of all, I realized these Alive forms. Is this the one you're thinking of, like the squiggly line?
Yeah.
One? I think that's kind of a fun shoe because it's like this squiggle line. It almost looks like, I think there's also a shoe that kind of looks like a Monstera leaf. I'm not sure if it's the same company that did it, but it's very similar design. But this one's different because it's made out of resin, right?
It's
like
STL or
SLA. printing.
SLA.
Whereas like Zellerfeld is doing FDM.
Yep.
I've been kind of dabbling in this world. I think we talked about I was doing like a little 3D printed shoe for a while. Another one of my ideas that I gotta finish. But I stumbled down this rabbit hole of 3D printing shoes and like kind of chatting with like the Zellerfeld guys and Joey Camus, a big Gravity Sketch kind of shoe guy. And the one thing that I've been kind of seeing recently is this brand called Mellon, MLLN. They, I'm obviously on the NFT Web3 side. They've been doing NFTs of their shoes. So you buy the NFT and then you get a 3D printed shoe by Zellerfeld.
Oh.
So Joey Camus designed some shoes, and then they're going to get printed over in Zellerfeld. And so the one thing I was going to say is like the interesting thing about Zellerfeld, which is this 3D printing shoe company that I guess is pretty new. They've done the Heron Preston ones, but they scan your foot, so that it matches your foot size exactly, which I think is really cool. And then the other big part that they are all about is when the shoes wear down, you send them back and they grind them up and they print them again.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool.
Yeah.
Like, you can't really do that with normal shoes. I mean, you could like disassemble the fabric and like maybe, recycle or downcycle. But just the ability that it's all one material that you can grind up and just melt down and make again is kind of wild. The one thing that I am a little bit like hesitant on or like curious about, and I'd love to maybe chat with the Zellerfeld guys more or do something with them one day, but is they have a specific aesthetic to them. And I think this is kind of like what you were saying is like 3D printing has this like printed aesthetic. And since they're doing FDM, normally you kind of prints with like a skin around it, right? You have the skin and then you have the infill, which is like kind of just like a spider web of structure. But they don't have a skin on their shoes, right? They just have kind of the infill, which gives it kind of this like spongy aesthetic. And of course their shoes have different densities of infill, and that kind of determines like what is like obviously the top of the shoe needs to be really kind of squishy so that you can slide in, but the bottom of the shoe should be really tough so that you can walk on stuff.
Right.
So maybe that has something to play into it. I mean, I don't know. I think it'd be cool to like to explore how far.
Yeah, and there's also Kid Super did another version.
Right.
I think those are the two. I don't know that Zellerfeld has more than the Heron Preston and the Kid Super. Do they have another shoe?
I wish I should research a little more, but I think they're pretty new, so I don't think they have many shoes out. But I know, I think we have actually a few friends like working on stuff with them.
Yeah.
So excited to kind of see what they do.
What do you mean by it's mostly infill?
It just has an infill aesthetic. It's like like a normal 3D print is it's clean. It has a bunch of layers and it's like very smooth on the outside. And then the Zellerfeld shoes seem to have this like sponginess where like you could run water on top of the shoe and the water would like go through the shoe. Like if you 3D printed a shoe with a 3D printer in the studio, it would just like, go off. Or like you could 3D print a cup and fill it up with water. Whereas what Zellerfeld's doing is like, it's almost like this matrix that they're printing. And I think maybe part of it is like, because I think they're printing with dissolvable supports. Like maybe that's the only way to like dissolve the entire supports without getting stuff trapped in the shoe. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Which also, if you think about what was the other brand you were saying, James?
Aliveform?
Aliveform with like the squiggly one. I think there's actually like holes in the front of that shoe so that you can drain out the extra resin.
Right.
Which I was like, that was like one of the part of the design that I was like, that's kind of lame. So maybe there's some sort of constraint there. It's just it's a new technology. There's going to be different constraints.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, but.
Yeah, the Aliveform ones are interesting because like what you're talking about in terms of the infill, like the SLA process has that really like spider webby looking infill. And so just like there's a bit of translucency to it, like especially with the white one, so you can kind of see through and in. And I just like, I don't know, it's cool. And we know there are companies out there like Gantry that are doing similar things. They're doing that with the lighting industry.
Right.
But
what you're saying is like the shoe industry is embracing the 3D printed like constraints and aesthetic.
Yeah.
Whereas like Gantry's like using it as a manufacturing technology. Right.
Right.
I think that was also like a big part of my Pixel Light was like I wanted to make a lamp that kind of embraces part of the grid like infill aesthetic. That was like one of the inspirations for it. But like I agree. I think the shoes right now is really interesting. I feel like it's heating up for sure. They're gonna melt?
Is that an extrusion nozzle reference? Yeah, I don't know. I say almost constantly that I feel very fortunate to be a designer during the 3D printing revolution because like
if you had to carve all this stuff out of foam,
I'm not a foam carver. I'm not a wood cutter. Like I was not a shop boy. And so like the ability for me to like take my CAD and print it is like, it's invaluable.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. And I, of course, like with my own brand and maybe I should revitalize it. Like, I was doing 3D printed metal because it is something that I'm very passionate about is this idea of like the like 3D printing future in the mass market. Cause like, I do think that it's a shame in some ways that we have to like design for a global audience. Like, I think in some ways that's great, but I think in other ways it's led to
boring design.
A blandification of aesthetic.
I think we had a whole episode on that, didn't we?
Yeah. And so like, I don't know. I think with all these things converging, sort of like the AI design, 3D printing, bringing things local, like
feels a bit of a renaissance, doesn't it?
It does feel like a renaissance. It feels like we're on the precipice of something. I was also like, I was looking at with a friend he's not a traditional designer, but he does like more bio. Like he works at a company that like grows this kind of like I think it's an algae for protein for food.
Oh,
for
interesting. Okay.
But he was like, we were just talking about 3D printing and he was talking about 3D printed houses and how like he's just like so into 3D printed houses.
Yeah. I think they're doing a whole town in Texas that's 3D printed now.
Really?
Yeah. Or maybe it's a suburb. Like there's doing like 10 houses at a time now or something like that.
I've only seen I've seen things here and there, but the big one that I saw, of course, was just like the Fuse project thing that they did. They worked on some like 3D printed housing.
Maybe that's the one I was thinking of. Maybe I can't remember if it was Bjarke Ingels or maybe it was Fuse Project.
Yeah.
But
it's cool. It's like it is. There's just like a certain aesthetic to it because again you're getting that like line work.
Right.
But like I feel like we're at this point also in architecture where I'm just like, here comes another glass
cube.
Listen,
I love a good cube.
Like skyscraper. I'm just kind of over it.
You know my favorite building on the New York skyline? Do you know which one it is?
No, which one?
432 Park Avenue. It's the Minecraft building. It's just all the little squares going all the way up. You know that one?
Oh, the like really skinny tall building?
Yeah, it's pretty skinny.
I think I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite building, man.
I mean, just a cool
bunch of cubes, man.
Cool multi-million-dollar penthouses all up and down. Yeah, I mean it's a nice like I don't mind that. What I do mind, what really upsets me about modern architecture is the lack of attention to the top of the buildings. Like there's just always like you look at the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, like there's so much work put into those spires. And
so you're a spire guy.
I aspire.
You aspire to some nice spires.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think like I would have been very happy in the Art Deco era. But I just really like downtown Brooklyn has been building up. And most of it is just like flat topped skyscrapers. And I just feel like there's so much lost in that. Like there's such an opportunity to do something, but like, I don't know if it's because of like all the systems that are now on top of buildings. Like,
like
HVAC
water
and
towers and stuff. Yeah.
I don't know, but it's I don't know. I think it's kind of upsetting in terms of like skylines.
Yeah, I'll take a cube. Give me a cube. I just I want to live in Minecraft.
You want a bunch. You just want a flat top city.
Yeah. Oh man.
I can't get behind that. But
okay, well, I got one more thing, and then maybe we'll save questions for another episode. Have you seen 3D Feedy on Instagram? Or I think he actually blew up on TikTok, but his videos are on Instagram too.
Only because you sent it to me.
Yeah. It's this guy in New York, and he's pretty new, I think. He's doing 3D printed graffiti. But the thing that's interesting, because this has been a thing before. Like, I remember the Knack Studio. Kelly had her little like 3D printed thing she could put on signposts. Obviously, I had the birdhouse. 3D Feedy is doing like a bird seed holder on a thing. The thing that I think is really interesting though is the way the videos are done, because it's just like viralness. I guess this goes back to the kind of the performance of the design, where I think what he's doing is he's videotaping the 3D print on the street. And this one I'm looking at right now is on the city bike. It's a phone holder that clips onto a city bike. And then I think he's going back and he's rendering out it kind of slicing. So it almost looks like it's being 3D printed on the city bike on the street. And it's such a wild, like, motion graphic animation kind of thing. And this stuff it went viral. I don't know how many views it has on TikTok. We're on Instagram, but it's just like wild how these like work. And like he did one like a little fedora where he's like putting a little fedora on like a little gate knob, and it just like 3D prints in the midair and then just sits down. I don't know. It's just like an impressive like animating / designing style. It's going back to this performance thing.
Right. Yeah.
I just never seen that before.
It does. Yeah, it does seem like he's filming the 3D print in a studio or something, and then, but or no, I guess you're saying he animated it.
Yeah, I thought it was, I thought he was doing stop motion, but looking back at it now, I think it's actually he's exporting the slicing file from the 3D printer and then rendering it in a render software.
That makes sense. I mean, yeah, I guess like a different way he could do it that would be more labor intensive would be to like
print out 100
yeah,
little
exactly,
stop motion
at
pieces.
different and stop at different points.
Yeah, that was my first thought when I saw this video. Anyways, I thought it was just like a very unique new way that I hadn't seen people kind of playing with.
Well, it's cool because it is what he's doing is both being very explicit about the process, but also there's a level of mystique.
Yeah, there's definitely some magic there.
So like, yeah, there's a bit of both, which is nice.
Oh, and this one I'm looking at right now, he scans a brick wall and then 3D prints a piece that fits into the brick wall.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways.
Very cool.
I think we'll end it there. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it.
As always, I'm Nick.
I'm James.
Peace.
Later.